Hello there. Welcome to my weekly Wednesday live episode. Episode 42. Episode 42, September 15th, year 2021. 9 p.m. Eastern European time. My name is Juha Ruokangas, your humble servant on a mission from the gods, the goddesses of fretted instruments. I was actually thinking the other day, who are these gods and goddesses? I always mention in the beginning. Are they us, the guitar makers? Are they you, the guitar players? And I actually came to the conclusion that it's actually you, the people who make music with the tools we make for you. You're the gods, you're the goddesses. So I'm on a mission from you guys. Anyways, last week we talked about the future of guitar design, and during that stream, Leslie asked in the live chat a question. Leslie asked, "Hey Juha, when do you plan to make a video about books that might be helpful when making a guitar? Cheers from Poland." And yeah, it appears Leslie asked me the same question already 3 months ago. And so here I am delivering finally what I have promised. Yes, today we'll continue from the somewhat abstract idea of future of guitar design to a more nuts and bolts type of topic of how can you learn to make guitars? Or how can you learn a new skill? It could actually be adapted to a lot of other things as well, I think. And I have to say, despite the seemingly straightforward title, the simple title, I didn't actually find this easy to do at all, which is also the reason I haven't actually made this video already earlier on. That's the reason why I'm 3 months late. Hey Stephen, Damien, Erling, Greg B, Tuomas, Poo Ninja. Poo Ninja, you're on time. Great. Greg is saying, yes, you write some books. Gosh. I have to say, it's like a secret fantasy for me to write a book. Really. Hello, Eric. First time watching live. Welcome, Eric, to watch this live. Great. Great to have new people here watching the live show. At the end of my last week episode, I mentioned I didn't have a clue of what the video will be about this week. And I was frankly quite lost with it. Until yesterday evening. See, I had a very nice long phone call with my daughter, Juno. And that discussion is what inspired me to do this particular video. So this one is dedicated to the extremely gifted Juno, the daughter of the most proud father ever. Juno, who has a beautiful future ahead of her, I'm sure. She's a freshman at the Helsinki University, cultural studies as her main subject. And while our telephone conversation, it kind of wandered along many trails. You could say we were in some respect brainstorming or observing what studying is about or what learning is about, and also how frustrating the process of learning can be, especially in a deeper philosophical sense. Okay, I'm guessing some of you are scratching your heads like, what the hell is the guy talking about? Well, let's roll our sleeves and dig in. By the end of the broadcast, you'll understand what I meant with the frustrating aspect of learning. Okay. Did we have here Mary Hillman? Hello, Mary. Welcome to watch the broadcast. All right, so can you learn a new skill, in our case, guitars, by reading books. Well, the time we live in, those of you who want to learn to make guitars or play guitar or to learn basically any new skill, never before in the history has there been as much know-how, as much information, instructions available in the format of books, videos, online courses, offline courses, like, I don't know, is that what it's called? Where you're present? What are they called? Live courses? Or just courses? I don't know. So much information available. Anyways. Well, a large volume of information doesn't, of course, necessarily reflect much about the quality of the content of the information. And you'll need to somehow be able to pick the good stuff. And that can really be a challenge. And now is the time for a disclaimer. I do apologize, but I have to humbly admit, I'm not the expert of what are the best books available. What are the best videos? What are the best other sources to learn from? I haven't read all the books, and I most certainly haven't seen almost any videos except the ones we've made ourselves a long time ago. I haven't taken online courses either. So I'm not an expert in this. I feel kind of out of place here. All I can do is to share my experience, and perhaps, if we're lucky, I manage to succeed to offer a piece or two of advice on a more general level, not necessarily tied to a specific source of information. But we will definitely, as promised to Leslie, now we will talk about books as well. And the first one I mention is probably not the first guitar making book I've read, but it's still at the very top of my list. Couldn't find my personal signed copy though. Looks like one of my luthiers may have borrowed it, perhaps to learn how to make guitars. But yeah, I'll show you an image. Anyways, I have it here. This one. Making an Nostop guitar by Robert Bob Benedetto. If you're into making electric guitars, basses, whatever, fear not. Read the book anyways. You won't be disappointed. This book is not only a great guide to one perspective, one way of constructing a guitar, but it has a certain intimacy to it that I like very much. The book really succeeds in letting the reader in to Bob's life as a guitar maker, which I think is very, very rare in a format of a book. In addition to the book, let's put the picture away. In addition to the book, you should also watch these. This is the DVD set, DVD version. Don't know if you can stream these from somewhere nowadays. So same thing, basically the same thing. Robert Benedetto making an Nostop guitar. Nostop guitar design and construction. An epic film odyssey on making an acoustic jazz guitar. When I saw this first time, it was on VHS tapes. Got the DVDs a lot later, but this is a great source of information. Hands-on watching what Bob does. And another really, you get so much more out of watching this than tips and instructions for making a guitar. You will start understanding the life of a guitar maker a bit too. So, very recommended, both the book and the DVDs. What are you guys talking about? How do I even pronounce this? Juha. Hephaestus. Is that it? Hephaestus? Hephaestus, perhaps you should call yourself Hephaestus. Maybe, I don't know. why I should call myself that. I don't know what this is. This is someone who made the Greek gods' weapons. Wow. Now I'm starting to like this. I'm gonna Google this and find out about it afterwards. Maybe this could be a future guitar model name. Hephaestus. It's very cool, actually. Thank you, Stephen. Or who was it Stephen who made the... Eric says Hephaestus. Okay, Hephaestus made the weapons. Whoa. I like that. Okay, but now we're moving on. This next book is not exactly about guitar making, but rather about repairing them. But a good idea to learn to repair in case you're planning to make a living with the guitar work, because establishing a brand takes a long time. So you can flip burgers at McDonald's or you can repair guitars. So, which one makes more sense? Repairing guitars makes much more sense. Or even if you're thinking of guitar making as a hobby, repairing is one of the best ways, absolutely, hands down, one of the best ways to learn a few of the key phases of guitar making that really matter and make a difference in an average guitar, good guitar, great guitar, exceptional guitar, and oftentimes it boils down to 1, setups, 2, fret dressings, 3, the fretwork, installing the frets, and 4, making the nut of the guitar. And with repairs, you get a ton of repetition of these 4 steps, that stuff. And if you focus, if you pay attention to what you're doing and manage to remain humble enough to learn from the mistakes you'll do along the way, because it is inevitable, you'll make mistakes. But at the end of the day, hey, 500 fret jobs later, you know how to do it. And to get started, these 2 books are quite useful. The first one, I don't have this one at hand. I do have the first edition of it somewhere. I can't find it. This one. The Guitar Player Repair Guide by Dan Erdogan. That was my go-to Bible of guitar repair for quite a while in the early 1990s, And then there's a newer one. The Guitar Player Repair Guide was done by Dan Erdogan, and you can buy it from StewMac. You can probably buy most of these books from StewMac anyways, because they're selling all this stuff for guitar makers. There's the newer also with the help of Dan Erdogan, but the book is by Eric Coleman, and also a good book. I don't have it, but I've read it. I read the first edition a long time ago and picked up some tips and tricks along the way. Fretwork step by step. So this is really a helpful book, I feel. There you go. All right. We have 3 books already done and a set of DVDs. And it's 9:15 soon here in Finland, PM. All right. I have a newer book that I enjoyed a lot. This is something that I've read only a few years ago. The Art of Luthery. Does it sharpen? Yeah. By Tom Bills. A great little book with very nice feel to it. Listen, it has a great tap tone as well. Okay, just kidding. Sorry about that. Had to. This one is also about making acoustic guitars, archtop guitars. But forget about that. Don't be narrow-minded. If you want to make bass guitars, you only want to read a bass guitar making book. No, forget about it. Just read books about guitar making and by experienced people, and you learn from all different walks of life. So yeah, Tom Bills, The Art of Luthery, great book. A little book, not a huge book, but straight to the point. Okay, since I'm from Finland, I just have to show this one book that won't really be helpful to most of you. It won't be helpful to others than those who can speak or are willing to learn to speak Finnish language. Okay, but nevertheless, I want to show the book because it is a great achievement, and in my opinion, it should be most definitely translated in English. The guitar is called Sähkökitaran rakentaminen. Doesn't probably make sense to a lot of you. Translated to English, Making an Electric Guitar, written by Anssi Nuutinen with the help of Petri Jaakkonen, Tuomas Eriksson, and Toni Reinikka in 2010. A superb book showing and explaining in detail the process of making one of the archetypes of electric guitars, the T-style electric guitar. And this is, guys, this is like all the secrets revealed. Everything in detail. And very nice pictures as well. There's one of the authors, Finnish artist, showing different styles of playing a T-style guitar. What's going on? Yeah, here we're back in the Billboards. It's really it's a great book for those who speak Finnish. So start learning. Or maybe, I'm throwing the ball your way. Maybe one of you guys is like, hey, I can find a way to have it translated in English. Would be good for you guys, and would be good for those guys who have written the book to get more audience. Okay, then there are two books by Leo Lospenato. I should actually have both of these books also somewhere, but I couldn't find them either. I know I do have them, but there. It's kind of a series of two books. The first one, Electric Guitar and Bass Design. And and then I'll show you the sequel, which is here. Making and Marketing Electric Guitar and Bass. These are actually really well-written books and very helpful and inspiring on many levels. So, even making and marketing, he's going all the way. The whole process of becoming a guitar maker and giving your shot on making a living with it. So, really kudos for Leonard Lospenato, for writing these books. It's a lot of work to write a book, and I'm really I really like these two books by Leo. Great books. They also have a bit more modern perspective on things than the earlier ones I showed. So that's a good thing as well. Yeah. And I have to also mention the resources published by the Guild of American Luthiers. It's more kind of geared towards older material, but hasn't lost its value. You can go to the Guild of American Luthery website to find more of their books, the big red books of Luthery and more. But anyways, here's one example I've had for a long time. It's about Luthery tools. There's no CNC in this book though. Okay, old school trade secrets in this one. But it is a. I would recommend that book. Before we move on, another little disclaimer. Remember the title of this episode. Can you learn a new skill by reading books? Well, can you? There is a connection, of course. By reading books, you gain at least two things. Your theoretical knowledge on the topic, whatever you're reading about, it increases. You're learning more on theoretical level of whatever topic you're reading about. And number two, you'll learn to fast reader So you learn to, what's that? You learn to read faster and better. Too much coffee or too little coffee. You learn to read faster, you learn to read better. But will you learn to make guitars by reading books? No, you won't. The only way to learn to make guitars is to make guitars. The more guitars I make, the better I become. Practice makes a master. You know, the 100th guitar will be quite much better than the 5th guitar you've made. And if not, you're in trouble and you should reconsider. You know, it's the same thing with so many other aspects of life. I can read a ton of books about human development or social relationships with people. But at the end of the day, the wisdom of the book that I do understand and I do agree with it on cognitive level, but somehow that wisdom doesn't become part of me, part of my behavior that easily. You know what I'm saying? It's like you watch a great movie about where the main character of the book goes through hard times, and then there's like the growth as a human being leading to the climax of the movie. And at the end of the movie, you feel like, yeah, that I understand what life is about, and then you kind of swear to yourself, like, I'm gonna change my ways. But it's not that easy. So I would say, if you want to learn to make guitars, drag your butt somewhere where you can make one. A course or something. If that's not available, if a course is not available and you must learn, you feel you must learn, find a way. Because if there's a will, there's always a way. You may say you've tried with no luck, but I ask, have you done all you can? No, there's always another way to try. And you will find a way. If it feels difficult, if it feels cumbersome, it's okay. It's good. The difficulty will teach you something. If it's easy, if it's too easy, you won't learn anything new. So the more you have these unsurpassable, is that a word? Unsurpassable obstacles, the better. Make your first guitar, and no matter how shitty it turned out, it's the first one. It's a beginning. And you can reflect on the experience when you make the second guitar. And I guarantee the second guitar will be better than the first one. If you've read books before you start making the first guitar, it's great. But reading books can also make things more difficult. What do I mean by that? Well, what if the book you read uses a lot of special tools and machines, but you don't have access to all of that? Does it mean that, you can't start? No, the book gave you that perspective. And in such case, try finding another source of information that fits your reality, that you can adapt to your reality. And also, I would say about book wisdom in general, it can also be deceptive in a way. I can tell from my own experience. As a young man, I used to read a lot of books. And I remember when I started my studies as a guitar maker, this was in the early 90s, I had read many books about the topic, about guitar making, guitar repair at the time. And I felt I knew a lot. And I was 23 years old. At the time, people around me may have thought of me quite the smartass. May have. I hope not. But probably they did. Dropping details of my 23 years old of age, this book wisdom, but 0 guitars built to an experienced luthier. Oh, like, Jesus. But yeah, so I'm definitely not saying you shouldn't read books. Yes, you should read books. Reading is great for the soul, great for the heart, great for your brain. But remember that reading Plato doesn't make you Plato. Hasn't worked for me anyways. Okay, let me see a couple of comments at this point. Puninja, have you made any special tools to build guitars? At the workshop, yes, we have made quite a few special tools to build guitars. Emma, when you watch this, could you make a note about this? It's another topic we could tackle at some point. The special self-made tools and jigs, fixtures. Yeah, that could be something we could talk about. Thank you, Puninja. Eric Mansard, I signed up for a future making course, no guitar making course available. Hopefully I'll learn enough basics to not lose too many fingers. The best of luck to you. The machines, the power tools, they are to be respected, not to be feared, but to be respected. I can talk of experience with left thumb 12 millimeters shorter than the other one. Why 12 millimeters? Because the router bit was 12 millimeters. That's why. Maybe I've shared the story in another video earlier on. Puninja says, find a luthier, ask if you can apprentice. We might touch that topic in a while. Stephen, I actually have at this point of my life the woodworking tools to attempt building a guitar, but after having COVID-19 I can hardly walk. Stumbling into a saw blade hurts. I did just cut was air. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. And I'm wishing for prompt and complete recovery for you, Stephen. We live strange times. We live strange times. Okay, I'll leaf through a few more books that I have found useful. These are not all guitar making books, though. Other books can be just as helpful or even more helpful. Depends on what you're after. Depends on the perspective. I've been all my life after understanding better what's going on around me. Understanding better what's going on around me. It's not a guitar specific glitch in my personality. I'm fairly certain there must be a diagnosis for it, but I'm not sure if I want to know. So in order to find my path as a guitar maker, I felt important to understand more. To understand better, to grasp a wider scope of things. So here's one. I've shown this in another video. I kind of remember this. I must have shown this in another video. I can't remember what video it was about. The story of Paul Bixby, father of the modern electric solid body guitar. Another very humane story. I really recommend. A great lesson in history of electric guitar. And another historic book, more history, The Beauty of the Burst. This one by Yasuhiko Iwanade. The Beauty of the Burst, a really great book. This one, it's great for a number of reasons. It helps to understand some of the magic of the Les Pauls built in the years 1958, 1959, 1960. Those 3 years, 1958, 1959, 1960. Even though I have to say that to really understand that magic, because there is some magic, not maybe all of those guitars, but the ones I have tried, yeah. I never got it. I never understood that magic until I had the chance to play some of those old guitars. Yeah, and even though this book is about Les Pauls, at a certain era, it is also a great insight to the world, to subtleties of color. And this is something that the name also suggests, the beauty of the burst. Subtleties of color. And this is something that I'm very fascinated about. I love colors. I love the endless nuances of colors. And this brings me to another book, not so much about guitars anymore. It's a book called Color Choices by Stephen Quiller. Making color sense out of color theory. A lovely book focusing into developing your sense of color. I really love it. It talks about the relationships of different colors. Yeah, it's really an eye-opening book. So there you go. If you want to learn about color, I have lots more books about color, but this one it's one of the nice ones. Okay, we're climbing higher, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, to see the bird's eye view, the big picture, and that's why the next book, it's a fantastic book. It's called The Universal Principles of Design. There. William Litwell, Cretina Holden, Jill Butler. Yeah, okay, if you want to make a T-style guitar, not necessary to read this book, but, well, Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, cathedral effect, 80/20 rule, all the different design theories and aspects and ideas. A lot of stuff to learn from, a lot of stuff to be inspired by when designing something new. Guitars being one narrow field, marginal field of what one can design. But this is a great book, really a great book. Like, night table book that you can just go back over and over and over again. Let me open some pages for you here. Wait, something that looks like something. Musical instrument. Anyway, yeah, a great book to be inspired by when designing something new and to understand better what's going on around you. Yeah. A couple comments. Puninja says, no, thank you, Juha. I've actually learned a lot here. If I ever use said knowledge, it's a different story. Thank you, Puninja. Stephen continues, without your concise info, I will try because of you. Thank you, Stephen. Eric asks, did you have any theory on what that burst magic was? Well, a lot of that burst magic comes from aging. It's what UV light does to red color, and when you see 50 different Les Pauls that when they were new they looked very similar to each other, not identical, I'm sure not identical, but strong red tends to be the dye that is the most challenging to protect against UV light, and it will fade out. And so there's not two guitars that have faded identically. They're all different from each other, slightly. I think some of the magic comes from there. Sure, there is other things as well, but we will now move on. Punija says the beauty of form and structure. Eric and Juha, that would make a great video. You mean about the burst, the beauty of the burst? That could be one video. Puni says it's BRB, which probably means something in the modern internet language. I don't know what it is. It's okay. Steven says magic is the thing we seek endlessly with music. Is it not? It is. It is. It is magic and music, if anything. I mean, music is it's really like I often talk about my guitars, like I say the communication tools for your soul. It's a phrase I like to use. It's a phrase that a long time ago, Swedish journalist Mats Nermark wrote that in Fuzz magazine of one of my guitars. This guitar is a communication tool for my soul, and it just stuck. And I asked Mats his permission if I could use this sentence because it was so beautiful. And I think it even more than describing my guitars, it actually is an insight to what music is about. Music is a very humane, profound phenomenon that it's very difficult to imagine a world without music. Our species without music. Okay, let's throw in one more that you might enjoy. One more book. No matter what your profession, no matter what your skill set, your passion, it's a book of 5 rings. The Classic Guide to Strategy by Miyamoto Musashi. References to guitar making, not much, but running a business could be very helpful. I've enjoyed this book. I've read it twice or 3 times maybe. And last but not least, I will show you 3 books in chronological order that have been extremely helpful for me personally in learning a specific skill related to guitar making. And I'm talking about pearl inlay. When I was studying guitar making, the school, the teachers, those very limited know-how of this specific skill. Sure, we could do blocks, we could do crown inlays to fretboard, but the knowledge for the kind of deeper insight on making kind of more complex stuff with pearl inlay was very limited. So in my urge of learning, digging deeper, books were the only way at the time. At the time there was no internet, so books were the only way I had in my use at the time. So I got this one. First, Pearl Inlay by James E. Patterson. An instruction manual for inlaying abalone and mother of pearl. And still to this day, it's a true classic and not outdated at all. And this one I got immediately when it was published. I think it was in 1995, just about the time when I was graduating from the guitar making school in Finland. The Art of Inlay, Contemporary Design and Technique for Musical Instruments, Fine Woodworking and Objects. The Art by Larry Robinson. And this book, this was mind-blowing at the time. Larry Robinson's skill, the art of inlay, was simply out of this world. So I had never seen live. I hadn't been at shows or or exhibitions, or I hadn't seen anything like that in my life when I got this book and these beautiful photographs by Richard Lloyd of Larry's work. Yeah, it was simply out of this world, and most definitely out of my reach. Speaking of skills, I just, this was magic. This was magic, and yeah. So this book I've read 100 times. I've slept with the book. You know, basically it is this book that helped me to get started seriously with a bit more ambitious inlay works 25 years ago. And then finally, this one, Grand Complications. Grand Complications by William Grit Laskin. 50 guitars, 50 stories from inlay artist William Grit Laskin. This is a rather new book, still available to purchase, so go for it. A fantastic insight to the greatest inlay art master ever. Have to say though that whereas the previous two books, the ones I showed before this, they're more like instruction manuals, how to do inlay work. The Grand Complications is not. It is more telling the stories Grit weaves into his art, into his inlays, and how he composes the artwork. And he talks about the process of it, but the actual nitty-gritty detail of how to saw pearl or how to engrave pearl, that you won't learn from this book. Anyways, for me personally, this book is very meaningful for a specific reason. Because I had gotten to a point with my inlay work, let's say 10 years ago maybe, that I felt that I just couldn't figure it out how to do it nicer than that. And when I was looking at the work by masters such as Larry Robinson or Grit Laskin, I always felt so like my inlay work was so primitive. The finesse wasn't there, and I couldn't just grasp how to get further in my art. So 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I think 6 years ago, Grit did a master class in Vienna, and I've had the rare opportunity to learn from William Grit Laskin in person. He was my master for a period of 1 week, 7 days in Vienna. We were learning to engrave pearl. 7 days straight we were learning to engrave pearl. And without this book, I would have never, ever even imagined of doing inlays like this. I would have never ever been able to do anything like this without the hands-on teaching by Grit. Or this, another example. Engraved pearl inlay. Some special skills are very hard to learn from books. You know, I feel for me, reading books and seeing pictures of engraved inlay art before Grit teaching me in person, it almost, you know, looking at the pictures from the books or seeing it even live at the shows, it made it more difficult, more like the threshold became higher and higher for me to figure out how to ever be able to do those magical lines on pearl in such a precise control finesse. I couldn't connect the two things, you know. How on earth can I make it happen with only this little engraver tool in my hand? How can I turn the pearl inlay to the engraved piece of art? No laser, no CNC, nothing like that. Only this little engraver tool in my hand. I never really understood it until Grit, the Grandmaster himself, taught me by hand in person. Yeah. Let me see, there were some comments here. Okay, we had some question from Juuso. Hello, Juuso. Welcome to the broadcast. Is there a difference between Arctic birch and a birch fretboard? Well, I think I've explained at some episode. Arctic birch is a name that when I started making it, when I started using flamed birch, Finnish flamed birch in my guitars, there was no international English trade name, anything for that. So it was just kind of like calling it flamed birch, and I thought that it was boring. So Arctic birch is something that I started using. I made it up. I pulled it out of my, and nowadays a lot of people are kind of referring. Later on, I learned actually that Arctic birch also refers to the kind of shrubbery type of birch that grows up in Lapland, in the very northern parts of Finland, Scandinavia, Siberia, very high up north. Not really a tree, but more like a bush, little bush, and that's called Arctic birch. And I probably caused a lot of unintentional confusion with my choice of trade name in the 90s when I came up with the highly figured Arctic birch, which I thought sounded cool. I started using that. So basically, birch, the species Latin name Betula pendula. Betula pendula. That is the one that we are using, and sometimes it has flame, sometimes it's plain. It's basically the birch we have a lot in Finland. So I hope this answers your question. And I'm sorry that I busted a myth there. If you would maybe like to wanted to keep the romance in it. So now I'm kind of washed off the romance from the name Arctic birch. Steven says, I've been an oil painter since 15 and paint changes for sure. I have a 50-year-old painting and I have watched it change over the years. Yes, that's time. Time will do the difference. Greg is liking Miyamoto Musashi book. Yes, that's a great book. Steven asks, do you enjoy doing inlay work yourself? Well, maybe I already answered the question in form of showing you those two pictures. If not, I can say that for me, doing inlay work it's a really meditative, wonderful way of feeling, of having a very strong sense of being alive. Because when you're doing that kind of work, you just cannot focus into anything else. You're there in that split second of a moment. And when we human beings are able to be in the moment that we are, it's often a wonderful experience. And it's too bad we're distracted from it to think so much about the past and the future and all the stuff. I know for me it's really, really difficult to be in the moment, but one of the ways of being there, being here, is to do inlay work. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things to do in guitar making. Well, okay. So talking about Grit Laskin teaching me in person. Back in the day, that was the common way of learning, to apply for apprenticeship. Like somebody said here in the chat earlier, find a luthier and apply for apprenticeship. That's what you did. The idea of apprenticing is, of course, an appealing one. To be able to follow the work of someone who knows, or at least appears to know what he's doing, and knows what he's talking about. And you get to follow that, and then you can mimic what the master does until you kind of start figuring it out yourself, step by step, and then eventually, after many years, if you've paid attention, if you used your brain, if you were humble enough, and most importantly, if you didn't lose the flame, the passion, you may notice that you're having ideas that might even surpass those of your masters. And slowly, through gaining enough understanding, you gain your wings to fly to freedom. In a similar way, in the modern time, the age we live, the age of free flow of information, if you will. We, the contemporary guitar makers of our time, we're standing on the shoulders of the previous generations. All that accumulated knowledge, not all know-how transfers from the masters of the old, unfortunately, to the next generation, but a lot of it does. And due to the nature of human existence, the nature of human existence, I mean, my life ends someday. So I feel it's also my responsibility to carry the torch and gladly then pass it on to the next generation, who will then hopefully shoot to new heights from my shoulders. Making finer guitars my ears, my hands, my eyes have ever had the chance to experience. Okay, now it's getting quite poetic. What else do we have here? Poo Ninja says, precision of inlay work is beyond my skill level. Well, Poo Ninja, you know the answer to this. Practice more. Do more inlay work, and you will get better. Steven says Hendrik slept with his guitars. Eric asks about my first guitar. There is an episode somewhere. I'm fairly certain I've been shown that first guitar in one of these videos, the Weekly Wednesday videos earlier on. Yes, how did your first made guitar turn out? What did you think of it then, and what do you think today, looking back? Well, I can say that my first guitar, just short answer, I hope short answer. I can see so much things that I can do better. I could have done better, but I didn't know how to do it better at the time. What I'm very happy about that instrument, that it's still it's a playable instrument. You can make music with that instrument. It's not a shitty instrument, but it's maybe nothing to write home about too much. It's not an exceptional guitar. It's a guitar where when I look at it, it's a replica. It's a Strat replica with some tweaks. But I was already then kind of wanting to do my own thing, and I didn't listen to the teacher who told me that you could maybe consider first making just an exact replica of the Strat, an exact replica of the Telly and the Les Paul and these other classics, because then you understand the archetypes, and you understand the construction, you understand the balance, you understand a lot of things, and then when you move on to do your own thing, you have that the tradition, the classic designs kind of more in your grasp. You understand what they are about because you've made those guitars as well. But I I wanted to do things my way, and then later on I kind of went even back to do some replicas, so to in the very early times to understand them better, which was helpful, I feel. Yeah, very nice questions there. But now we're going to go back because we're running out of time. Back to the conversation I had with Juno, my daughter, yesterday. Remember, we talked about studying, the process of learning, and how frustrating it can be in some sense. Well, I was referring to this confusing feeling or fear that we both, me and my daughter, seem to share. An example from my life, so you understand. I've studied guitar making full-time 3 years in the early 90s, with the addition of all the books I read, all the conversation I've had with colleagues, with my peers, which also could be called studying as well. All the endless thinking of making guitars, and then making guitars, running this company for 26 years now. I've written so much articles about guitar making. I've given tons of interviews to all kinds of magazines and podcasts and this and that and whatnot. And I've done these podcasts, and still, despite all that, whatever it is that you could call maybe expertise or whatever, all that knowledge, the accumulated knowledge of my personal past, professional life. And still, sometimes I have this fear, this weird feeling of someday they'll find out. Someday they'll realize I didn't really know the truth. Someday it will be revealed that I just somehow made this all up. I played a game, I pulled it out of my hat. Like the Arctic Birch name. Because, at the end of the day, what is the truth about these things? What is the best book? What is the best way? How should it be done, like for real? and then again, it's amazing and quite liberating then sometimes to have a conversation with a much more experienced colleague, my role model, and learn that he's experiencing the same thoughts of disbelief or doubt, like we're here in order to understand better. We're tracking down the holy grail, the perfect guitar, the ultimate communication tool for your soul, if you may. And always when I'm like reaching out, there it is, like just about within grasp, and it keeps eluding me. And that is the frustrating aspect of learning and studying. A skill, a craft, in a profession. That through the process of learning more about the world around us, we're forced to confront the paradox that there are very few ultimate truths, if any, to lean safely against. But on the other hand, with age, coming older, I found this realization also comforting. Perfection isn't necessary. Living a good life doesn't require flawless performance. It is actually possible for me to learn to love the imperfection in me. Okay, I'm not always succeeding well in this. Not even maybe most of the times. My family knows the best, but I try. This aiming at the perfect score, the inimitable performance, our culture idolizes this way. But there are other ways. There are other ways in other cultures, like in the Navajo culture. They believe that only the Great Spirit, the God, is perfect, and the humans should not even aim at achieving that same level of perfection. So they deliberately leave little imperfections in whatever they create, like bowls or quilts or jewelry, musical instruments. Perfection is not necessary. In fact, it's not even advisable. It's blasphemy for the God, for the Great Spirit. You know, and that is a beautiful, liberating, and humbling thought to end this podcast with. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've gotten really nice comments. Thank you so much for sending so much comments this episode. Very grateful. Keep them coming. I probably won't have time to look more today, but I'll definitely I'll read through everything. I promise that. And yeah, all I can say is that, you know, we do our best and that's enough. And next week is yet again another Weekly Wednesday live episode, and it's kind of a mystery again. I don't know. We most likely might or might not talk about something related to stringed instruments, such as guitars or basses, or not. Let's see. Thank you so much for your support. Until next week, remember to take care of your loved ones. Be well. Stay safe. And as always, peace, love, and good music.